The wind bit harder than usual that November evening in New York, slicing through Ethan Caldwell's coat as he hurried down 7th Avenue. He was late again for the annual office party at Pinnacle Tech, where he'd worked as a mid-level software engineer for 3 years. But it wasn't the looming deadline or his boss's passive-aggressive emails that had him distracted. It was the woman sitting on the sidewalk, her thin frame huddled against a brick wall, clutching a tattered blanket. Her name, he'd later learn, was Lila. She looked about 30, with auburn hair tucked messily under a knit cap and green eyes that held a story he couldn't yet read. Ethan stopped, his polished shoes scuffing the pavement. He'd passed her kind before, hundreds of times, head down like most New Yorkers. But something about her quiet dignity, the way she didn't beg but simply sat, made him pause. "Hey," he said, crouching. "You okay?" Lila's gaze flicked up, wary but not hostile. "I'm fine," she said, her voice low, tinged with a faint southern drawl. "Just cold." Ethan hesitated. He wasn't rich, his Brooklyn studio apartment ate half his paycheck. But he had enough. "There's a diner across the street. Want something warm?" Her eyes searched his, looking for the catch. There wasn't one, not really. Just a gut feeling he couldn't shake. At the diner, over steaming coffee and a plate of fries she barely touched, Lila shared fragments of her life. She'd been a graphic designer once, freelancing in Atlanta, until a bad breakup and a string of unlucky breaks left her on the streets. Ethan listened, his heart tightening. He'd grown up in a small Ohio town, where people helped neighbors. New York had hardened him, but not entirely. "You don't have to tell me everything," he said softly. "But you don't have to be out there tonight." She laughed, sharp and brief. "You offering me your couch, stranger?" "No," he said, grinning. "But I've got this work party tonight. Fancy place, free food. Come with me." The words spilled out before he could stop them. Lila raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "I'm serious," he pressed. "You'd be doing me a favor. I hate these things alone." Against her better judgment, Lila agreed. Ethan lent her his spare coat, and they took the subway to Pinnacle's sleek Manhattan office. The party was a glittering affair, chandeliers, champagne flutes, and tech bros in tailored suits. Lila, in Ethan's oversized coat over her worn jeans, stood out like a candle in a storm. Yet she carried herself with a quiet grace that made Ethan's chest ache. They stuck close, sharing whispered jokes about the pretentious appetizers. For the first time in months, Ethan felt alive, not just a cog in the corporate machine. Then the CEO, Marcus Vaughn, a charismatic man in his late 40s with a reputation for charm and ruthlessness, took the stage. His speech was predictably polished, growth metrics, innovation, blah blah blah. Ethan barely listened, too focused on Lila's soft laugh beside him. But when Marcus stepped down and approached them, his smile froze Ethan's blood. "Lila," Marcus said, his voice a mix of shock and something deeper. "My God, my wife." The room spun. Lila's face drained of color, her hand gripping Ethan's arm like a lifeline. Ethan's mind raced. Wife? Marcus Vaughn, tech titan, married to a woman living on the streets? It didn't add up. Lila's eyes locked on Marcus, a storm of emotions flickering across her face. Fear, anger, and something like longing. "Marcus," she whispered, barely audible. The party buzzed on, oblivious to the drama unfolding. Ethan's first instinct was to pull Lila away, to shield her from whatever this was. But her grip tightened, grounding him. "You know him?" he asked under his breath. Lila nodded, her voice trembling. "I haven't seen him in 5 years." The story of Lila and Marcus began in Atlanta, a lifetime ago. Lila, then 25, was a rising star in the design world, her work bold and unapologetic. Marcus, 10 years older, was a startup founder with big dreams and bigger charisma. They met at a tech conference, sparks flying over late-night talks about art and ambition. Within a year, they were married, a whirlwind romance that felt like fate. But Marcus's startup took off, and with success came distance. He worked late, traveled constantly, and grew colder. Lila, struggling with her own career and the pressure of being the CEO's wife, began to unravel. The breaking point came when Marcus's company went public. The stress, the isolation, the whispers of his infidelity. It was too much. Lila left, taking nothing but a backpack and her pride. She thought she'd rebuild, but life had other plans. A lost job, a maxed-out credit card, and a string of bad luck landed her on the streets. She never told Marcus where she went. He never looked. Or so she thought. As Marcus stood before her now, his tailored suit a stark contrast to her borrowed coat, Ethan saw the weight of their history in her eyes. "You disappeared," Marcus said, his voice low, almost accusing. "I thought you were dead." Lila's laugh was bitter. "You didn't try hard to find out." Ethan's jaw clenched. He didn't know the whole story, but he knew enough to feel protective. "Maybe we should go," he said to Lila, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. "No," she said, squaring her shoulders. "I'm done running." She turned to Marcus, her gaze unwavering. "You don't get to act like the victim here." The tension was palpable, drawing curious glances from nearby co-workers. Marcus's charm faltered, his face a mix of guilt and defiance. "This isn't the place," he said, gesturing to the crowd. "Let's talk. Privately." Lila hesitated, then nodded. Ethan followed, his heart pounding. They stepped into a quiet conference room, the city skyline glittering through the glass. Marcus paced, his composure fraying. "I looked for you," he said, "for months, but you vanished, Lila. No note, no call, nothing." "You were too busy building your empire," she shot back. "I was drowning, Marcus. You didn't notice." Ethan stood silently, feeling like an intruder but unable to leave. There was something magnetic about Lila's strength, her refusal to shrink. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, his voice softening. "I loved you. I still do." The words hit like a punch. Lila's eyes glistened, but she didn't break. "You loved the idea of me," she said, "not the mess I became." Ethan's heart ached for her. He wanted to say something, anything, to ease her pain. But this wasn't his fight. Or was it? He'd only known Lila a few hours, yet he felt tethered to her, drawn to her resilience. He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. "You don't owe him anything," he said quietly. Marcus's eyes flicked to Ethan, narrowing. "And who are you exactly?" "Someone who cares," Ethan said, meeting his gaze. The conference room felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with unspoken truths. Lila's past with Marcus was a wound that had never healed, and now it was bleeding anew. Ethan, caught in the crossfire, felt his own emotions spiraling. He'd invited Lila on a whim, a small act of kindness. Now he was entangled in a drama that could upend his quiet life. Marcus's phone buzzed, breaking the silence. He glanced at it, then sighed. "I have to take this. Lila, please stay. We need to talk." He stepped out, leaving Ethan and Lila alone. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked, his voice gentle. Lila exhaled, her shoulders slumping. "I don't know. I thought I'd moved past him. But seeing him, it's like I'm 25 again." losing everything. Ethan hesitated, then took her hand. It was cold, trembling slightly, but she didn't pull away. "You're not that person anymore," he said. "You're stronger than he'll ever understand." Her eyes met his, searching. For a moment, the world outside the room faded. The party, Marcus, the city's relentless hum. There was just them, two strangers who'd found something real in the chaos. Lila squeezed his hand, a small gesture that felt monumental. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Ethan said, "and I want to know more." The door opened, and Marcus returned, his expression unreadable. "Lila, I owe you an apology. For everything. But I need to know. Why didn't you come back?" Lila's jaw tightened. "Because I didn't want to be your trophy anymore. I wanted to be enough." Marcus flinched, as if her words had struck a nerve. Ethan watched, his mind racing. There was more to this story, layers of pain and regret neither of them had fully unpacked. But one thing was clear. Lila wasn't the same woman who'd left Marcus years ago. She'd survived too much, fought too hard. The party was winding down, the crowd thinning. Marcus offered Lila a place to stay. His penthouse, of course, with its panoramic views and sterile luxury. Ethan bristled at the offer, sensing the power imbalance. Lila declined, her voice firm. "I'm not your responsibility anymore, Marcus." "Then let me help," Marcus pressed. "A job, an apartment, whatever you need." Ethan saw the flicker of temptation in Lila's eyes, but she shook her head. "I'll figure it out. I always have." As they left the conference room, Ethan felt a surge of pride. Lila wasn't just surviving. She was reclaiming her story. But Marcus's words lingered, a reminder of the life she'd lost. And Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Not for Lila, not for Marcus, and not for him. Back on the street, the city felt different, sharper, more alive. Ethan and Lila walked in silence, their breath visible in the cold air. The diner was still open, and they slipped inside, craving warmth and familiarity. Over another round of coffee, Lila opened up more. She talked about her art, how she'd sketch on scraps of paper when she could find them. Ethan listened, captivated by her passion, her refusal to let the streets steal her soul. "I want to help," he said finally. "Not like Marcus, not out of pity, but because I see you, Lila, and I think you're incredible." She smiled, a real smile that lit up her face. "Your trouble, Ethan Caldwell." "Good trouble, I hope," he said, his heart racing. They spent hours talking, the diner emptying around them. Ethan told her about his own struggles, his fear of being stuck in a job that didn't matter, his longing for something real. Lila listened, her presence grounding him in a way he hadn't felt in years. When the diner closed, they stepped outside, the city quiet now, the stars hidden by skyscrapers. "Come back to my place," Ethan said, then quickly added, "No strings, just a couch, a blanket. You don't have to be out here tonight." Lila studied him, then nodded. "Okay, but only because you make terrible coffee." They laughed, the sound cutting through the cold. At Ethan's apartment, Lila curled up on the couch, her guard finally down. Ethan lay awake in his room, replaying the night. He'd invited a stranger to a party and ended up in the middle of her story. A story of loss, resilience, and maybe, just maybe, a new beginning. The next morning, Lila was gone. A note on the counter read, "Thanks for seeing me. I'll find you again." Ethan's heart sank, but not entirely. She wasn't running from him, he realized. She was running toward herself. Weeks passed, and Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Lila. He looked for her on 7th Avenue, in diners, in parks, but she was a ghost. At work, Marcus was distant, his usual charm muted. Rumors swirled. Divorce papers from years ago, a settlement never finalized. Ethan stayed out of it, focusing on his code, but his mind wandered. Had Lila found a place to land? Was she safe? One evening, as snow dusted the city, Ethan found a package at his door. Inside was a sketch, a vibrant, intricate drawing of two figures under an autumn tree, hands touching. The note attached was simple. "You were right. I'm enough. Lila." Tucked inside was an address for a small art gallery in Brooklyn. "Wouldn't miss it," he said, stepping closer. They talked for hours, the gallery emptying around them. Lila's art was raw, honest, a testament to her survival. Ethan felt something shift inside him, a longing not just for her, but for the courage she embodied. As they stepped outside, snow falling softly, Lila took his hand. "I'm not fixed," she said, "but I'm trying." "That's enough," Ethan said, meaning it. They stood there, the city alive around them, two souls who'd found each other in the chaos. Marcus's shadow lingered, but it was fading. Lila wasn't his wife anymore, not in any way that mattered. She was Lila, artist, survivor, and maybe, just maybe, Ethan's future. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning.